Hey, I'm Dougal Lalonde. I'm leader of the Manitoba Liberal Party, and I'm here with Cindy Lamoureux, MLA for Tyndall Park, and John Gerard, MLA for River Heights. And we're here to answer your questions on COVID-19. Today it's March 26th. We're just going to give you an update on the measures that have been happening in the province and answer some questions. We have been asking lots of questions of the government. We called on the government to put an immediate freeze on evictions. So many Manitobans who are going to have difficulty paying rent April 1st. The government has acted on this and has postponed all eviction hearings until May 31st, as well as freezing rent increases. We've also been hearing from constituents about problems with changes to pharmacare because we had some folks who depend on getting a 90-day prescription. And they're having some changes on that, but we're still waiting to hear back in full on that because a whole bunch of people all of a sudden are going to face paying 2 months out of pocket, and that's just not fair. We've also been hearing from small businesses. So actually, you know what? I'll hand it over to John. John, if you want to just cover the stuff we've been talked about in terms of we sent out a press release today calling on the PCs to introduce some measures for small business assistance.
We've been hearing from a lot of small businesses. While some are very busy dealing with the pandemic, there are many others who are really suffering because people are not coming into their stores. People are staying away. Some gyms and things like that have closed as the part of what the government has mandated. And so that many small businesses are in deep trouble.
Yep.
And so what we have put forward is a 6-point plan to help small businesses. Part 1 would be some flexibility in handling taxes, some ability to defer taxes. Part 2 would be an emergency grant program so that if businesses have seen their income plummet drastically, they would be eligible for grants to help them get through this difficult period. Third, we've called for direct cash injections by the government where there's opportunities for government to take an equity position and essentially pump money into a firm and to allow it to continue. We've called for the government to purchase products and services from businesses as part of a share purchase or a purchase plan so that if you're keeping the products moving, and in some cases, governments can inventory those products and enable them to come back on the market later on. We've called for a form of pandemic insurance, and this is because for most small businesses, their insurance specifically excludes pandemics. Yep. And so people are not covered for pandemics. We feel that what should happen is something like what happens when we have a flood, that government should come to the table with a form of pandemic insurance that would really help businesses out. We also feel that some businesses which can transform and deliver products and services for that pandemic should be supported in this effort to enable Manitoba businesses to get started to make those changes. Of these things, the government has offered some tax deferrals, but we're still waiting on all the others. We are continuing to push for small businesses and to support small businesses in Manitoba because small businesses are so important to our economy and to all of us.
Yeah. The one thing I've heard, which is encouraging, we got some feedback just on Facebook after posting this, that small businesses, they don't want loans. They don't need any more debt. And that's one of the things that I think makes our proposal different than everybody else, is that the way we've set it up, it's not about loans and it's not about giving people yet another loan. It's about either giving them a break in their taxes or grants or direct investment or making sure they actually get the revenue they need. And not just saying, well, here, why don't you take out another $20,000 that maybe you're not going to be able to pay back. So, okay, great. Now we'll go on to the question and answers. Over to you, Cindy.
Yeah, we had quite a few question and answers from our last conference here that we did. And one of the questions were, are there any airlines being routed to help bring Canadians home from various countries? Many airlines are suspending flights, as everyone knows, as well as airports are being closed and opened almost on a day-to-day basis. But we're working to get clarity from the federal government on specific flights. So if you have a friend or a family member who is in a different country, even in a different province right now, if you want to reach out to any of our offices, it's MLA for St. Boniface, MLA for River Heights, or myself as MLA for Tyndall Park, we'll definitely look into the individual cases. But we are telling people, get your loved ones home as quickly as possible, because it is becoming harder and harder to come back to Manitoba. And it's now been enforced that even if you're just coming from Grand Forks or neighboring province, Saskatchewan, you have to go into quarantine now for 14 days, no matter what.
Okay, thank you. We have another question about small business assistance. And as I said, we put out our plan today. Somebody said they said they're right. I have tried for hours to find links on how to apply for small business assistance from both the federal and provincial governments due to COVID-19. Can you please assist me or inform or direct me in the right direction? Now, as we said, Manitoba has not responded with a financial relief package. Right now, Manitoba is the only province that has not announced any financial relief. Every other province has announced some kind. Something is supposed to be coming shortly. We hope it'll be good, but we'll see. The province did announce they're going to extend filing deadlines for small and medium-sized businesses with monthly remittances of no more than $10,000, but that doesn't really answer a lot of the issues that a lot of small businesses are facing. They will have a couple of extra months to remit sales taxes. For the federal government, they have just passed an $82 billion package to support businesses that are facing revenue losses and to prevent layoffs. The federal government is proposing a temporary wage subsidy for 3 months. It's equal to 10% of what somebody would get paid during that period, up to a maximum of $1,375 per employee and $25,000 per employer. That businesses can get it almost as soon as they apply, and you do have to do a little digging. We'll add the link under this video, but most of what you need to get to is at I think it's at canada.ca/coronavirus. So that is the central page. You have to click through a couple of links to get to it, but the economic help is right there on the federal page. The Canada Revenue page is going to allow all businesses to defer until after August 31st any payments of income tax that became owing on or after today and before September 2020. There will be no interest or penalties on that. And there's a business credit availability program through the Business Development Bank of Canada and Export Development Bank to provide $10 billion of additional support, and $5 billion for farmers in the agri-food sector. So, agri-food sector. Sorry. Again, that will be all on the federal government page, and we'll wait to see what's coming up from the provincial government. So, and then I guess the next question is about let's see, rent and mortgage payments. John, did you want to get that one?
Sure. Up. Okay. We have been calling for the preventing or mandating that there be no evictions. The government has actually followed through on that. And we've also been calling for help for people who are renting. And this applies both to individuals and to people with commercial interests, with business interests who are renting their where they have their operations. At this point, there really is not nearly as much help as there needs to be, and there's not as much clarity as there needs to be. Certainly on the business side, there has been some potential help from the province on the individual side, but it's really not as clear as it needs to be right now.
And if I can just quickly add to that too, I know I've been receiving quite a few emails about housing co-ops not necessarily falling under the Residential Tenancy Act. We just want to make sure that everyone, if you live in a housing co-op, that you're considered as well when it comes to being taxed and rents not going up. Just the same benefits that typical house renters, people who are renting apartments, owning homes and mortgages are receiving.
Okay, great. And I was going to say, there's the question, what is the Canada Emergency Response Benefit? And this was just announced the last couple of days, because there are a lot of people who aren't covered adequately by EI. So this is it's a federal program for workers who lose their income as a result of the pandemic. It will provide up to $2,000 a month for up to 4 months. So paid every 4 weeks and be available to October 3rd, 2020. It's supposed to be simpler and it's supposed to be more accessible. The Fed's already announced some other programs, so this is putting a couple of them together. It will cover Canadians who've lost their job, who are sick or quarantined, or who are taking care of someone who is sick with COVID-19, as well as working parents who must stay home without pay to care for children who are sick or at home because of school and daycare closures. So there are going to be workers who are still employed but are not receiving income because of disruptions to their work, so that they would also qualify for this. It's called the CERB, the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. They're just in the process of setting up the website for people to apply, and they should be able to get payments within 10 days of application. And the portal, which will be on the Government of Canada website, should be up and running in early April.
I'd like to just thank people for sending in questions, because in many cases we are passing on the comments and questions to the government. I wrote a letter this morning to cover a number of issues. For instance, we've had nurses who've said, well, what happens to me or to other nurses if we've got an elderly person or somebody who's immunocompromised at home? We're at high risk of getting COVID-19, and we don't want to pass it on to anybody at home. And we suggested to the government that they fund the hotel rooms for healthcare workers who are in this situation, so they don't have to go home and so they can protect their loved ones. We had quite a bit of interest from people who want to work from home, but their employers are not allowing them to. And we've called on the government to make it clear that in every instance where it's at all possible, workers should be allowed to work from home. We've had issues in terms of real estate operations. And again, we've passed this on to the government that real estate now, we should have much more virtually online, but in the instances of where you have to visit a home, because quite frankly, it's the most expensive purchase you're going to make probably in your lifetime for many, and you want to see it in person, that it should be one or two people at a time going in and making sure that all social distancing procedures and protocols are followed.
Yeah. And we've been hearing lots from people working in childcare as well. I want to give a big thank you to all the people who work in childcare who've been facing a huge amount of upheaval in their lives in the last couple of weeks. I think lots of other people have been thanked and deserve thanks. Everybody working in healthcare, all the people who have really been scrambling to get ahead of this crisis. But childcare workers, I would want to give a special shout out to them. They are facing a number of challenges from this government that we still have to, we're going to be asking questions because often what's happening with this government is that they'll solve one problem and then create a whole bunch more. They're not really thinking things through adequately. So we want to give them credit for the good work they're doing, but we also want to make sure that those extra problems are solved. And that's been a really big issue with childcare, both private childcare, not-for-profit childcare, parents, the whole thing. So we're still looking and pushing for some answers on that from the Pallister government. We hope they'll change tack, because I know that there are a lot of people who are really worried out there, and the resources are there to make sure that this goes okay. And that it is going to be a challenge for everybody to be at home, but it's especially stressful for childcare workers and the people who don't, all of a sudden they're being told they have to shut down their centers, but they're also being told they have to stay open. They're getting lots of mixed messages, so we want to straighten that out. So I don't know if there are any more. Do you want to do a couple more questions if we're going to wrap up today? And um, Cindy, do you have anything else to wrap up?
No, I think we should save some more questions for next time we do this. I think though too, just in thanking healthcare workers and thanking childcare workers, we should also quickly thank the workers who are keeping our essential goods open. So grocery store workers and skip the dishes workers. These are very important people in this sort of time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's it, is that I think it is a stressful time for lots of folks, but I think we do have, there are a lot, I mean, part of the thing about this, lots of people have been coming together, offering help, offering great ideas. Like the people who are coming to us with concerns aren't just coming to us with complaints. They often have solutions too. And I want to thank everybody. People have been really great about that. So thank you too. Thank you guys as well. And that's it. We'll wrap up and we'll see you all soon.